Hello, listeners. This is Kat. Welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of All For You. This will be part 26, day 173. Katsuki lost his grip on the ball. He had been flailing in his hand. It bounced across the floor and rolled into Izashi's slippered foot. Izashi looked down, blinking at it. Katsuki whined. Izashi looked up at the kids. Katsuki was sitting up, his chubby face scrunched into an unhappy frown as he stared across the room at his ball. Drool darkened the front of his orange onesie, which had a little picture of a green dinosaur on it. He flapped his arms in frustration, huffing. Izuku pushed himself up from his small mountain of pillows, watching the ball with interest, his pacifier bobbing in his mouth. Izuku normally despised tummy time, but he seemed to have all but forgotten he was stuck in it now that Katsuki was here. The benefits of having peers his age, Izashi thought as he bent over to pick up the ball. Mitsuki sat next to him, sipping her coffee loudly. Masaru was exploring Hizashi's home, or Tartarus Jr., as Hizashi had come to call it. All Might hated the nickname, which was the primary reason he stuck with it. Katsuki whined again, louder this time. "Just toss it back, Hichan," Mitsuki said, looking into her coffee absent-mindedly. "Are you sure?" Hizashi said, looking at the ball suspiciously. It was covered in baby slobber, as were most things that came within reaching distance of his son and honorary nephew. But there was also little bits of dust and lint stuck to it now. He knew the moment Katsuki had it back it was going straight into his mouth. Mitsuki snorted. "Of course I am. The little goblin has tried to eat my shoes before. I'm not worried about him getting sick from a little floor dirt." Something by the babies rattled. Katsuki huffed. "It's dirty, Mitsuki," Hizashi said, rubbing the ball against his shirt to clean it at least a little. "Do you really want your son gumming dust bunnies and lint?" It was a hollow ball made of squishy connected rings, meaning it was not terribly easy to clean against his shirt, but he tried his best. "Oh, come off it, old man," Mitsuki said, bopping his head lightly with her mug. "This place isn't even old enough to have dust bunnies, and I know you keep everything cleaner than the inside of a Purell bottle here anyway." Izuku cooed. Katsuki cooed back. Hizashi grumbled, looking back down at the ball and wiping it against his shirt more. Izuku was vulnerable to illness, of course he kept it clean. Why did she have to say it like it was an insult? Plus, if Katsuki became ill, then that meant the Bakugos wouldn't be able to come over until he got better, which would, at best, take a while, and at worst, land Katsuki in the hospital. Which ultimately meant Katsuki wouldn't be able to come over to play with Izuku. Which wouldn't do. "Hey, Hichan," Mitsuki said. "I'm just cleaning it a little bit, Mitsuki. I'll give it back in short order," Hizashi mumbled. "I don't think you have to," she said, amused. "I know, Mitsuki, but—" "No! I mean, look at the kids, Hizashi," Mitsuki said, poking him. Hizashi blinked and looked up. Katsuki was lying on his belly now, chewing away on one of Izuku's toys, which Izuku must have tossed to him. He didn't seem mad about the loss of his plaything, or his pacifier, which he must have spit out when Hizashi was looking away. In the slightest, so instead he was completely entranced by the shining lights and rattling noises the toy made as Katsuki chewed on it. Izashi huffed, smiling as he leaned back. How easily they were entertained, so fascinated and curious about the smallest things in life that he had long since taken for granted. It was endearing to watch them learn. It was freeing to experience it all again, through them. Watching Izuku and Katsuki, watching these little lives bloom and grow, it made him wonder how it had become so easy to cut lives down. He shook the thought away. That was a thought for his poor bastard of a therapist. For now, he had a ball to return. And as Katsuki reached for Izuku's oxygen tube to chew on, the baby to distract, Hizashi stood up, brushing off his now dusty and drooly shirt, and walked over to the babies. Izuku looked up at him and grinned, cooing. Katsuki grinned at him as well, babbling and luckily not noticing as Hizashi moved Izuku's oxygen tubing out of his reach. Izuku grabbed his oxygen tubing instead, quickly bringing it to his mouth. Trying to get him to stop was an excuse in futility, so Hizashi didn't even try. "Hello, boys," Hizashi said, crouching by them. Izuku cooed again. Katsuki blew a raspberry. Hizashi shook the ball in front of Katsuki's face, watching his big, ruby-red eyes lock onto it. "Do you want this back?" he asked. Katsuki reached out, chubby hands grabbing at the ball clumsily. He babbled purposefully, as if he was trying very seriously to ask for his property back. Hizashi chuckled, a grin breaking out on his face. He set the ball down in between the two babies on their playmat. Izuku was still far too young to sit up more or move around on his own, but Katsuki was at the age where he could be challenged that way. So Hisashi put it a little further away from him. Katsuki reached up, grabby hands failing to capture the colorful ball. His brows furrowed and he pushed his chest up, off the ground huffing. He tried to reach for it, but only succeeded in falling to the floor again. He pushed himself up again and kicked his legs, trying and failing to sit back up. Katsuki whined, his eyes starting to shine. Hisashi clicked his tongue, sitting down next to him. "Let him figure it out, Hisashi," Mitsuki called over to him. "But he's going to cry, Mitsuki," Hisashi said. "So? Let him be frustrated. It'll motivate him to try harder next time," she countered. "What's the rush?" Hisashi asked. "He'll learn in due time. There's no need to ruin his day when he's having so much fun." "Softy," Mitsuki teased. Hisashi huffed but didn't refute the statement. He leaned over, about to lift Katsuki up before Mitsuki interrupted him again. She warned. "If you do that, he's not going to let you leave." Hisashi shook his head and carefully slotted his hands under Katsuki's armpits. He lifted the wiggly baby up and settled him on his little butt, slowly taking his hands away once he was sure Katsuki was supporting himself. Katsuki looked over at him, big red eyes staring at him curiously as his hand made its way to his mouth. Hisashi huffed softly in amusement and wiggled the ball in front of his face. Katsuki cooed, reaching out to grab the ball and, predictably, stuffing it in his mouth. Hisashi chuckled, then busied himself with taking just a few of Izuku's pillows to arrange around Katsuki. If he was going to be shifting positions a lot, Hisashi didn't want him to lose his balance and bang his head. "Happy babies only, please." Hisashi sat back, checking his work. Izuku was still lying on his belly, propped up under his armpits by a U-shaped pillow, playing with his oxygen tubing while also trying to coo at the same time. Katsuki was sitting up, now surrounded by soft pillows that would protect his head should he flop over. He stared at Hisashi, chewing on his ball. Katsuki grinned, and then he flopped over. Hisashi frowned, and sat Katsuki back up again. His honorary nephew giggled madly, sat up for a little more than a few seconds, then flopped back down again. "Told you," Mitsuki said in sing-song. Hisashi sighed, realizing he was well and truly trapped as he sat Katsuki up, only for him to flop back over with a squeal. "Come now, Katsuki," Hisashi said, sitting him back up again. "Don't you want to play with your ball?" Katsuki squealed around the ball in his mouth and flopped over. Izuku cooed, arms flapping as he watched them with a sparkle in his eyes. "Oh no," Hisashi sighed. Masaru chose that moment to walk back in, blinking when he saw Hisashi missing from the couch. Mitsuki gestured towards Hisashi and the babies with a shit-eating grin. "Oh," Masaru said. "Are you playing with the boys?" "I believe I've been tricked into it, yes," Hisashi said wryly as he sat Katsuki back up again, to the endless amusement of both babies. "Mitsuki," Masaru admonished. "I warned him," Mitsuki said, putting her hands up. Katsuki flopped over again. Hisashi sat him back up. Katsuki flopped over again. Masaru laughed softly. "Oh, I see." Hisashi sighed as he sat Katsuki back up. Izuku squealed loudly. All three adults and Katsuki looked at Izuku. His son had a massive grin on his face, and he was pushing himself up as best he could with the U-shaped pillow in the way, only for him to let go and flop face first into the pillow. Izuku giggled, one blue turning green eye staring at him, shining with life and happiness. Katsuki squealed as well and flopped over. Hisashi let out a longer sigh and propped both his son and his honorary nephew back up, only for them to predictably flop down again. He couldn't stop smiling. Ring, 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 ring. "Hello, this is Inko Midoriya. I'm sorry I missed your call. Please leave a message and I'll get back to you as soon as I can." Beep. "Hello, love. I found that gift you had hidden for Katsuki. I gave it to him the first time he came over. He liked it well enough, I think, if his immediate attempt to eat it is any sign." A sad chuckle. "You know, I'd always wondered why you got that blanket for Izuku so early. I'd figured that you were simply excited to settle on a name, but that had never quite seemed like a satisfactory answer. But I suppose matching blankets for Izuku and Katsuki answers that question rather nicely, doesn't it? You were always fond of sentimental things like that." A soft hum. "Although, I think getting different colors was a wise choice. I rather doubt those blankets will be in pristine shape later down the line, not with how much abuse, or rather, as Masaru puts it, love, they receive from the boys." Silence, distant, muffled sounds. I am doing my best, Inko, and really, Izuku is doing quite well. He talks all the time. He's extremely curious, and he's always trying to reach for things he shouldn't, but I can't help but worry. Silence again. His legs. They are always very stiff. He still kicks, but not nearly as much as Katsuki seems to. I know that Katsuki is developmentally older, but it still strikes me as odd. It just seems to be a much more difficult movement for him than moving his arms, or any other part of his body, really. A slow sigh. I can't say whether this is my fault or not. I hope that it isn't. I truly have been doing my best to parent as well as you would have. And there is every chance this could simply be a side effect of his rough start. I suppose, in the end, it doesn't really matter what caused it. I will bring it up in the next checkup, and hopefully it is either nothing to worry about or can be treated. I'll keep you updated, Inko. Until next time, love. Call ended. All right, listeners, this concludes day 173 of All For You. The next part will be the last and final part of this fic. I hope you all have enjoyed this one so far. Let me know your overall thoughts and reactions to everything. And as always, thank you so much for listening.